Hey guys, first regardsman here, and today I brought Jefficus once again to talk about a potential Apothecary class in Space Marine 2 and what it would bring to the game and how it interact with the class dynamics. What is up, Jeff? Do you want an Apothecary in this game? Because currently, I think that Bulwark kind of fits whatever niche a support class could possibly have in Space Marine 2, but part of that is that the Bulwark is just, insane at the moment. How do you feel about that?
Yeah. I think that people definitely confuse Bulwark's ability to completely carry a game with supporting your team. Like you're supporting your team by
Yes,
killing
technically you
every
are
single
supporting your
enemy.
team.
Yeah, you are effectively supporting your team, right? Like you're just an AD carry, tank, and support all at the same time, just because the class is so overpowered.
Yeah, Bulwark is nuts
But
right now.
I would love to see a sandbox in Space Marine 2 where the Vanguard and the Bulwark can no longer heal the team. All those talents and perks are replaced with other things that make their roles stand out. And then we have an Apothecary that's there to provide much less healing than what the Bulwark is providing to the team right now.
Do you think that an entire removal of a healing perk from Bulwark is necessary? Because previously Saber talked about having like the healing perks reworked in this game. They know that Invigorating Icon is an OP perk. They think it should be
Mhm.
removed or reworked in some way because at some level Saber knows that healing perks in Space Marine 2, they break the pickup economy of the game. They basically make it so like the stim economy in Space Marine 2 does not exist anymore, and that is
Yeah.
good for new players. I made a video on this previously that I think that healing perks are not necessarily bad for Space Marine 2. They are optional. They are obviously going to break the game for a lot of players and a lot of types and stuff like that. But for new players, for players that are just getting whacked around all the time in this game and struggle on all the difficulties, it will just be useful for them. And hell, it's useful for people on absolute difficulty as well. I benefit from healing. Everybody benefits from healing. It makes the game
Mhm.
go more smoothly. It can make a game feel more fun for the majority of the player base. I don't think that's a bad thing, but as far as a dedicated healing class goes, that could be pretty difficult because we have to ask, like, what could the Apothecary bring in terms of healing that a perk like Unmaziel or Invigorating Icon is not already doing? Because global heals for your team are already about as good as it gets. And I think that Apothecary should really lean more into something like the Biologist as like a debuff and
Yeah.
buff machine. So what do you think about that portion?
I 100% agree. I don't think that the healing factor of the apothecary should be the sole purpose of the class. I think that the class can be significantly more than just a healer. Like I would like to see it be a debuffer. I want to see another class bring Gravis armor to the table. I think that's so freaking cool. The possibilities of that for cosmetics is
Oh yeah,
awesome.
all the champion
Um,
packs for sure. You're right. That's
yeah,
actually
yeah,
an amazing
exactly.
point.
And so I don't think you need to make the apothecary specifically a dedicated healer for it to work as a class in the game. And I think that if you remove things like invigorating icon or completely redesign them, then having an apothecary who maybe just offers, like, let's say the equivalent healing of a free med stim every 3 minutes or something. That's still highly valuable, but it's a much more limited resource than something like the invigorating icon banner, which has been nerfed. The cooldown on your banner when you take invigorating icon is doubled, but it was nerfed because of the addition of Bulwark's new prestige perk, where you're able to farm ability cooldown back
That is
extremely
true.
fast by simply blocking ranged attacks. Anyone who doesn't know this just doesn't really understand the sandbox well, and a lot of players assume that Invigorating Icon got a huge unnecessary nerf, but it was 100% unnecessary nerf for the setup of that prestige perk.
Especially with Chaos, with like the missile terminators and stuff like that, you can get your banner back in like 2 seconds off a single volley
Instantly.
from them,
Yeah,
basically.
instantly.
Even still, like, even with the nerf, Invigorating Icon is still the best perk in that column by far because perks like that are just insane. You could make an argument that Shield Bash is better, like the highest levels of play for like really good Bulwark players that animation cancel all the time, but like 99% of people are not taking a block axe and shield rushing every single person and shield bashing them 90 times in the row. It is just that
Hmm.
currently the way that Bulwark operates is that Bulwark is just good at everything. Bulwark has absurd damage, absurd boss damage, absurd survivability on top of healing the entire team. And like that does fit the idea of a support class, mainly because support is just okay, I'm gonna carry my whole team. I think a better example of a support class in like a more balanced way is Tactical currently. Tactical is very
Yes,
squishy compared to all
100%.
the other classes. He is mostly a range support. He brings a great team perk options like Secure Stockpile, and he has an Auspex that's like a huge benefit for your whole team. Like you see an Auspex go down and you nuke a boss, that feels good for everybody. I think people really like the idea of a support role. I think this is very like a very attractive idea to a lot of people in any video game. You see this in games like League or Dota, where you're playing a support class and like to feel like they're having that impact and like helping their teammates get kills without directly killing anything. Obviously, any class in Space Marine 2 is going to be a melee fighter and a range hybrid because the team works. But as far as giving players like that idea of, okay, I'm going to heal up my team, I saved their life, they did the damage, but like I was there watching them, I think that's a huge thing for a lot of players. I think it would be a good thing to bring into the game more so than we have now. But Apothecary, I don't know. I feel like it really does run the risk of being very overpowered in this game. Some people don't think that balance matters at all in like a PvE game. I don't agree with that because I think at some point, if you don't balance your PvE game, the game becomes impossible to balance new content for. You don't know like what to make requisition points cost. It defeats the purpose of difficulty levels. But like at some point, you have to like pull in the brakes on a lot of things. But I'm curious what you think about like an Apothecary class as a support healer versus a support buffer and buffer.
I don't think that it would break the game too much because what we currently have in the game is broken. Invigorating Icon is broken. The ability to, if you're playing something like Siege mode on the Bulwark, just farm healing for the entire team over and over and over again is already broken. So basically, by your logic, the current sandbox is broken, and I agree. I 100% agree. I agree completely because whatever you're playing in Absolute with a party of 3 people and you have a Bulwark on the team, the Bulwark could be using a wet noodle, and you are going to clear that Absolute mission easily, as long as the Bulwark is continuously healing the team.
That is
But
true.
what
You
I'm
especially notice it in Siege mode where requisition points are so huge that a class like Vanguard or a class like Bulwark makes such a difference just on points saved. And points saved means more bots, it means more stims that your team can buy, more ammunition, and that really
yeah,
changes up how far any team is ever going to be able to reach in like a 3-man, which is why Bulwark is basically part of every single team comp that has ever reached past wave 40 in Siege mode, because without it, you're just wasting
exactly.
points. So it's a pretty fundamentally broken mechanic because, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. You can't reach that high of a wave without it because you'll run out of requisition points in Siege. So I do agree with your point there for
Cool.
sure.
I didn't know we were going to talk so much about Siege in this little discussion
I think
here, but
Siege mode's good.
I would love to get into it because I think one of the reasons why Siege isn't highly replayable is because you have classes that bring significantly more value to the table compared to other classes. Like for example, why wouldn't I want to bring the Heavy, who's able to hit everything in a wave at the same time? Why wouldn't I want to bring that? Same with the Bulwark Power Fist, the healing, the ability to recover ammo basically every time you execute an extremist enemy, because every resource that you're able to recover on your own is more requisition points that you're able to just sacrifice to the almighty Dreadnought. And when you get the Dreadnought out every 5 waves, and then when you have a constant like heavy bot up just helping the team, these waves get cleared significantly faster and with much less danger to the team. And so this is actually an example of where there's too much healing, too much ammo restoration, etc., available to the team. And so the resources are so plentiful that it removes a lot of the challenge.
Yeah, but it's only to certain classes, like you said, where it's like a Bulwark, a Vanguard, a Heavy. A lot of the things in Siege mode just scale up. Because the issue with Siege mode, if we're going to go into that a little bit here, is that Siege mode is just like a DPS race in a lot of cases. It's like, how much money can I save
Mhm.
while I kill the wave as fast as humanly possible and avoid the timer? That's why classes like Assault can push higher than certain classes would, even though those classes are better overall for like absolute difficulty, because the issue is not survival. The issue is that you need to DPS race. You need to beat the timer at all costs. So any class like Horde Clear, things
Yeah.
that would usually not be as good, like Zealous Blow, gets way better the more enemies you are fighting. It gets way better in the higher difficulties of the game because these things just scale up tremendously. Pyre Blaster and stuff like that, they're already amazing, get even better at times, especially in the new PTS server that was around. where range damage was counted as, or burn damage was counted as range damage and healing your CHP. And like you said, the heavy class and of course the bulwark are able to do incredible amounts of team impact for things like AoEs and of course healing. So, like you said, the sandbox is kind of broken in that respect, and I don't think the big problem here is just that, like, the way Siege mode is set up currently, because in absolute difficulty, you feel like the game is just in a way better balancing spot, in my opinion. Like, you don't notice these
I
absolutely
agree.
broken
Yeah.
things. I think Invigorating Icon feels fine in absolute difficulty, and I don't feel like I'm just sitting there like, okay, let's save our money at all costs. You have to play as sweaty. It's not because absolute difficulty and hard stratagems are not hard. It's because they just fit the flow of the game and the pickup economy of the game far better. And I feel like an apothecary could fit into that. I feel like an apothecary would also be quite tanky on top of like maybe just having a secondary. I want to go to like loadouts for a bit
Yeah.
here. But as far as its place in the current team dynamics, obviously it would release post Tech Marine. We know that Tech Marine is going to have a shoulder gun. We know it'll have a secondary and an Omnisaya axe plus a power axe and some turret placements. It might fit the role of like a ranged DPS hybrid with a melee class, which is pretty cool. But the apothecary probably be like a primarily ranged class with some heavy perks, maybe like less so ranged than the heavy. But having Gravis armor would be pretty huge to make the tanky beast because we have the heavy class
Yeah.
having like the fortitude perk, conviction, stuff like that. So having like your tanky healer that has slightly less damage than say a heavy would be pretty cool with a bunch of buffing and debuffing effects.
I think that you could also provide team support without focusing on like a direct healing aspect as well. For example, it would be really cool to maybe have an ability or a team perk where the apothecary can do something to someone, maybe with their war gear. So with like a I guess kind of like a shield bash, but the apothecary's version of that is injecting a teammate with like a stim or something. And this stim would effectively just for the next minute make it so that your contested HP does not drop. So you're not directly healing someone. If they've already eaten a hit prior to you injecting them with this, then they're not going to benefit from it at all. But they're now capped at 50%. They'll always be able to recover their HP to 50% because they'll always be able to recover that contested HP to that level. I think that that kind of support would be very appropriate for the
That
sandbox.
would be an
And
incredibly powerful ability. Definitely how
it
damage reduction in the
would,
game
but
works.
in my opinion, it's no different from what the current state of invigorating icon is, where you could effectively just continuously heal the team
Oh,
over
I
and over
agree.
and
I
over
think it's
again,
actually like
even in
having
absolute.
something based around the contested health is a great idea because contested health is kind of a terrible system in Space Marine 2 as it is. The way they've implemented it is that any like contested health perks like advanced conditioning, defense mechanism, these perks make entire weapons viable for CHP recovery.
Yeah.
Like for example, on the assault class, the Inferno pistol is actually pretty decent versus Chaos right now if you take defense mechanism because you are able to get back that stagger on top of that CHP regen because of that delay. But without the delay, you will simply lose your HP so damn fast in scenarios. So building a support class around that
Yeah.
to really change how your teammates can play would be pretty cool without like outright breaking the sandbox. Even if you do agree the sandbox is currently kind of broken. But as far as giving players that option to support their team, I think contested health is a great idea because contested health perks, they feel really good in Space Marine 2. They are fun to play
Yes.
with. They do not feel overpowered. They almost always feel like you are playing within the rules of the game. They might give you like a little bit of a benefit here to just be, the margin for error increases, which it should, something in the game should give you that option to give you a greater margin for error because otherwise, what is the point of like an apothecary or like any type of healing perk or any type of contested health perk or any type of like power power increase in your game? It's supposed to make the game easier for you, and having an
Correct.
apothecary affect your sandbox in that way, that's a great idea. Contested health is just such a shitty mechanic in this game, unfortunately, that all the buffing like the buffing perks for contested health feel really good to play around with because without them the entire mechanic just feels underbaked, which is why they are going to be reworking it at some point to focus on melee rather than ranged. In that kind of sandbox where you have a CHP focus on melee versus ranged, the apothecary might feel even better, where its CHP recovery perks go up in value tremendously, and including the ones on things like assault and bulwark. So I'm curious how you feel like it would interact with an upcoming update and stuff like that with the CHP.
Well, so that's actually my biggest fear, right? Is that Saber moves forward with CHP nerfs to ranged weapons, specifically reducing the CHP recovery on ranged damage. because when you don't have basically another layer of protection in place for what is currently established in the game, then more people are going to start relying on things like Invigorating Icon and the Vanguard team perk for healing, because it's going to become necessary because you're going to start taking more and more chip damage, is kind of how I see an like a quote unquote fix or an update to the way that we currently regenerate CHP in terms of like nerfing ranged CHP recovery. But with the Apothecary, I think that there's a real opportunity here to introduce a support playstyle that a lot of players are trying to capture with Bulwark, but they're not quite getting because the class is just so powerful. One of the biggest examples, or one of the best examples that I always point to for a support playstyle in a horde game or a co-op game like this is Victor Saltspire's Warrior Priest in Vermintide 2. With Warrior Priest, it's a really awesome playstyle because you have to kind of pay attention to what is happening to your teammates' health bars and to just what's happening on the screen. You need to always be watching what's happening to your team members in order to apply a quick save in the form of like, oh man, my teammate just ate a big hit. They just went down. Okay. I've got to use my ability on them within the next 3 seconds or they're going to die. I'm going to lose my window. And so you're basically able to, almost like contested HP, you're able to recover all that HP that that person just lost by using your ability on them. And then it makes them invincible for 3 seconds or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Space Marine 2 already has an invulnerability mechanic, so they'd be able to really easily work that in. That would be really cool. Basically, as soon as you see someone go down, you could then apply the support or the save right then and there and recover that HP that they lost in maybe like a big hit or something, and then give them 2 seconds of invulnerability while they get up.
Not a
That
bad
would
idea
be
at
really,
all.
really
And
cool.
vulnerability is a pretty strong mechanic in Space Marine 2. It's also a lot of fun to play around
Yeah.
with. Being able to basically phase through attacks constantly with the invulnerability mechanics. If you're unaware, Space Marine 2's invulnerability basically works as like the ultimate form of no knockback. You just don't exist to like any enemy in the game at that point. Like they'll target you, but their attacks will simply phase through you, ones that would otherwise knock you over, even with the no knockback perks active. So giving that to your team, that would actually probably have like a pretty high skill cap, to be honest. Like you'd be able to shoot them and like give
It
them
would.
invulnerability or something like that. Proper timing would be very important. It would really benefit coordinated teams versus like random teams. But overall, having a dedicated like Reser and support class, it would be pretty unique in Space Marine 2. But like you said, a CHP recovery rework could kind of break the sandbox as it currently is, because my
Yes.
big worry for CHP recovery in terms of like any healing class or the like, you know, an upcoming apothecary class would be that it wouldn't really matter if like your CHP recovery is super good or CHP recovery perks that might become mandatory, like you said, because a lot of the things that kill you in Space Marine 2 is like a stun lock or being knocked over and your HP bars just drains contested health, and I don't really know how an increase.
I was about to say that I think that this is where the Apothecary could really work. So you can have an ability, or maybe you make the ability for the Apothecary basically like an injection where the previous instance of CHP recovery is given to the player as a second chance. So like let's say you get hit by a sniper and you're just super far away from everything. Like there's no possible way that you can recover your CHP, or you get hit by a warrior and while you're stunned, your teammate goes in, kills it, executes it, and you just cannot recover that CHP whatsoever. This is where the Apothecary would step in, and the next time that you engage in combat, they would hit you with their ability. Boom, you get that instance of CHP back that you can recover, and you fight for it. You fight for it back. I think that would be really cool because it introduces this support playstyle with a very high skill cap where that player needs to be paying attention to what's going on. They need to be paying attention to the damage that is being done to the team, and then they need to be able to react to it either in the moment or later. Like that's how you do support for a game like this. I don't think you introduce support by directly introducing healing to the team in just like a I press button, you're healed kind of way.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people want, though. But I feel like part of that is just that they're very used to playing games where it's like insta heal their teammates. I think some
Like
people
World
do
of
just want
Warcraft.
to like positively just clear through their team or like cruise through any mission whatsoever with like one healing perk. Just like, okay, my guy's down, I'll press a button, heal him instantly. and that is fine. I know people really want Apothecary in this game. I think a huge reason why people want Apothecary in this game is because they just want the game to be easier. I think that is like a huge portion of it, to be honest. Is that they want to have like some option to just like insta heal their team and feel like they're supporting them, which is totally fine because, you know, we already have healing perks like that in the game now. But personally, I feel like Apothecary might be just like a little boring of a class to add in the Space Marine 2 because like in the current sandbox, I think it could benefit more from like a chaplain class or stuff like that we mentioned before in other videos. But
Librarian.
Yeah, librarian especially. Like if I had to pick
Saber,
between the two,
please.
it's just like please librarian over an apothecary. But apothecary is very popular because any type of class that's going to be healing based in a game that has like parry mechanics and like really high damaging hits, it's just going to be a popular option, which is why you have players who say like, oh, siege mode is literally unplayable without heal, or like people will see you not take the healing perks on Vanguard and be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Because they just don't,
Yeah.
they don't register the game in that manner. Like they don't play it that way. They just assume like these are must takes because healing is just like anything that increases your margin for error tremendously like that and breaks the pickup economy is going to be incredibly attractive to players. And I think an apothecary is an incredibly attractive class for players because of that function that it would probably bring. So like any
well, I
closing
think
thoughts on that?
in a way that's very healthy for the game though, because it relieves a lot of the pressure from, like, let's say you take away the healing from Vanguard and Bulwark, then it relieves a lot of the pressure for a lot of these other players who are playing Vanguard and Bulwark to take those perks every single time. It opens up what they can take. It adds more build variety for those classes, and it basically moves that level of support over to the apothecary. Now, of course, that starts the discussion of like, okay, well,
Yeah,
is the
everyone just started
apothecary
taking the apothecary at
is
that
the
point.
apothecary mandatory? Yeah, are you throwing if you don't bring an apothecary? And that would be a completely different discussion for when they add the apothecary.
I feel like that would be
because
a problem no matter what with like any type of
yeah,
healing
yeah.
classes that like any player that gets hit a lot in their game will be like, oh my god, my asshole teammate didn't bring an apothecary, he didn't bring an invigorating icon, please carry me. Like that's just gonna be an issue in any single game
Mhm.
ever. And apothecary is going to be like the biggest finger, like I have like the biggest fattest finger point at him for that because he is the dedicated support class. But you know, support players in video games, they're used to getting shit on. It's just kind of like their place in gaming.
They are.
Whereas like,
Yes.
it's just what you're gonna get. It's like, dude, okay, like the damage dealer is always gonna point at like the apothecary and be like, you suck, why didn't you save me? That's how it is. But I think it's still healthy for a game. I would still like to see an apothecary, maybe not over librarian, but I would like to see it eventually. But to be honest, I like to see any class in Space Marine or like every single type of archetype we could possibly have for Space Marine. Because more classes
Listen,
the better, in my opinion.
we need the apothecary. We need a support playstyle because I need to get my wife to play this game somehow, you know. And if she's not here to heal me, then she's not playing because she's not gonna do anything else. She's not gonna DPS.
That's true. Arby's added in the dog build for that reason. The only way.
Exactly.
Right, dude. So,
oh my god!
wow, your wife just cast just strays right at the end of the video. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, you say
yeah,
your
yeah.
wife sucks at video games, Jeff? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, those are Jeff's closing statements on his wife and the apothecary class. And let's know what you guys think about an apothecary class in the comments below. Do you think it should add an apothecary class to the game? Do you think it should be a dedicated support healer or like just a CHP healer or like, you know, some buffing machine like that? And do you think the healing perks are overpowered as they currently are in Space Marine 2 at all? Let us know in the comments below. And if you like content like this, subscribe for more. Subscribe to Jefficus and take it easy. Bye.
The Emperor protects.